the North of Ireland project has just got over 10,000 members, and we thought it was a good time to just look back at what we have achieved over the number of the years. And the first chart I want to show you today is this one. And this shows our project joins over the number of years since we established the project 10 years ago. And what I want to really point out here is the angle of this rise. Now, I'm not a statistician, but I mean, as far as I could see, that curve is pretty much going up at the same angle as it always has been. So what this is showing us over time, and these little spikes are showing you how many people have joined us on a monthly basis. Now, these large spikes are when we get kits sent from Family Tree DNA that we then distribute to testers within the North of Ireland. So that's why there's so many on those particular months. But all of these other smaller ones are people who are choosing to join us. So it's a mixture of both. And we have new members coming in, which are the big spikes. And also we have people who are on the Family Tree DNA database who are choosing to join us because they have an ancestor from the North of Ireland. And my colleague, Vincent Lavery, is in charge of the project joins. And he checks there to just check that people do have an ancestor from one of the 9 counties of Ulster before he admits them to the project. So you can see there that we started off very small in 2014, and we are now at 10,073 at the moment. And that represents that little red dot there. So that's the scale of the project. And as I said, I think the curve is important. If this was flattening out, then we would think, well, yes, we've sort of got as many as we're getting, and that's really just all we're going to achieve. But I think we're going onwards and upwards, and I don't think the project is showing any signs of slowing down at the moment. So what we decided to do then was to look at the different types of DNA test and just analyze what we've already got in that 10,000 number. And what I found was that almost all of our kits have autosomal results. Now, this can be a mixture of family finder results that have been processed by Family Tree DNA, but it can also be people who have chosen to upload a DNA sample from another company, such as Ancestry or MyHeritage or 23andMe. So when I look at the 10,000 kits, we have 5,697 kits, which are family finder tests. And that is very useful because what that means is because all of those tests are processed on the same points, the comparison of family finder against family finder is better than a comparison between family finder and an upload from one of the other companies. So that allows us to have a good firm footing where we can start, and we have a large number of kits. I would say that's a lot higher than a lot of other projects. And that gives us that firm footing that we can use to get an accurate comparison between those kits. And we would always recommend that if you're going to use your DNA a lot, that you do the family finder test, because it can be crucial in establishing smaller matches further back with more authority. Because on an upload, you will have a percentage of matches which are false matches, and you will also have ones that don't show up when they should. And that's because all of the different companies test different points. Now, what we've also found is that testers with ancestry from one of the 9 counties of Ulster, which is the North of Ireland, they tend to get between 8 and 12,000 matches. And we can nearly look at somebody's results when they come through. And if they don't have anywhere near that number of matches, it tends to be because they have ethnicity or DNA or ancestry from another area. And then that is something that we can establish and look at. So we do find that across the board in Ulster, our participants are generally getting a high number of matches, and that's a good number to work with. We also find that a large number of our participants have added a family tree. And again, that would be higher than the family tree DNA database as a whole. And as I mentioned earlier, we do provide all types of DNA tests to people in the local area. And we do this through going to shows. We do it through our distribution network within our branches. And we try to supply kits to new testers. That helps to keep things going. And I think it's why the graph on the previous page hasn't diminished. It's keeping going at the same angle as it was before. So that's the family finder test. When we look at why, out of our 10,000 participants, 3,179 have done some form of Y testing, and that means Y12 and above. Now, I think that's pretty good because we have a lot of female testers in our project, and obviously they can't do the Y-DNA test. And then we have people who are closely related. So, for example, I have 6 people of the same surname who are on my mother's family, and I wouldn't be wanting to do a Y test on all of them because they're all very closely related. So when you have a family group, well, you'll probably only do a Y test on 1 or possibly 2 of them. And that then means that a lot of those people that we have in the project wouldn't be looking to do a Y-DNA test. So of the remainder, I think that 3,179 is a very high proportion. And what we're finding is that people who have done a Y37 test or a Y111 are constantly upgrading. And we're also getting new people who are choosing to just maybe go for big Y straight away. And of those 3,179, you can see here is the number that have done all of the different levels of testing. And again, I'm looking here that almost 2,000 people have already done the big Y. So we're talking about 2/3 of the total number that have done any Y testing whatsoever. And again, what we're finding is that people are doing Family Finder, and then they're progressing into Y-DNA from there. So it means that multiple people are doing multiple types of tests, and that helps as well, because that is giving you the range of results that are going to be very useful when you're comparing your results against another project member. And then we'll move on to mitochondrial DNA. Again, we have got almost 2,000 people have done MT testing. Now, there's been 3 different types of MT testing available over the years. 1996 was the lower level HVR1 test, and then it was upgraded to HVR1 and 2. And again, you can see the vast majority have done that test. But most people now have done the full sequence, and that's the highest level of mitochondrial testing, and it's the one that is most useful for family history research. So what we're finding here is the vast majority of anyone who's done any mitochondrial testing has done the full sequence. And again, we're finding when there has been the early bird sale, we're now in the Black Friday sale, and all of these things encourage people to come along and to do these tests. But again, that is never going to be up as high as 10,000 because again, their siblings have tested their autosomal DNA. They will be in our project and they won't necessarily both want to do mitochondrial because their results would be the same or almost the same. And therefore that wouldn't be necessary. So it's always going to be a smaller proportion, but 1 in 5 of our project members having done a mitochondrial test already is pretty good, I would say. And we're hoping that because of the new Million Mito project, that 2025 is going to see a spike in mitochondrial testing as well. And that means that the people in our project who maybe haven't done it yet, but could benefit from it, may then decide to do that test within the next 12 months. So it'll be interesting to look at these figures at this time next year and see if we have a lot more people have chosen to do their mitochondrial DNA. So moving on just a wee bit to talk about haplogroups for a moment. And again, if you've done the Family Finder test, it means that you're going to get a free mitochondrial and Y haplogroup. Now, the Y haplogroups have already been given out to those who have done the family finder test. And again, this is only males, but those are intermediate haplogroups. They're not as good as doing Y or mitochondrial tests, but they are something that is useful for comparison purposes. And it's something that is searchable within your family finder matches. So this gives us a better representation of our ancestors and gives us better matching. And that's because we have a lot of people who have done Y testing. Then some of the ones that haven't are getting this intermediate haplogroup. And it means that many of our family finder matches now have some form of haplogroup associated to the results. And that means it's easier for us to identify if a family match is on our Y line. Now, next year, everyone is going to get a free mitochondrial intermediate haplogroup. And you're going to get that if you've done the family finder test. But because we have over 5,000 people that have done that, that is going to provide an explosion in mitochondrial haplogroups that is going to be available on our family finder match list for us to compare with. Something to bear in mind is when you get these free haplogroups, you're not getting matching on Y and mitochondrial tests. And therefore, it's still essential that we do those tests. But for those of you who haven't done that, it just helps to have that additional information there for comparison. So what I did in this little table at the bottom was I looked at my own match page. And at the moment on my family finder matches, I have 9,214 matches. And what I was able to see was about a third of them already have some form of a haplogroup. And that is based on either a Y-DNA test, or it could be based on an intermediate haplogroup given to people who have done the family finder test and are matches to me on my family finder test. There's not as many mitochondrial haplogroups at the moment, but they would just be based at the moment on people who have done a mitochondrial test. But then, as I said, next year, everyone who's done family finder is going to be eligible for that. And that means that that number is going to dramatically increase. And that means we're going to be able to search our family finder match page for people who have the same mitochondrial haplogroup as ourselves. And that's going to be a very useful tool. Okay, so then I had a little look at big Y testing. And as I said on the previous slide, we currently have 1,971 people in our project who have done the big Y test. We have another 57 people who are currently awaiting results. And as I mentioned too, there's been many have been purchasing those kits recently. So it's a constant drip feeding of our project with more high quality big Y results. And FTDNA Discover is largely responsible for this. If you haven't yet done a big Y test, you may not have seen this little menu, but anyone who's got a haplogroup, even if it's one of the free ones from Family Tree DNA, you can go in to FTDNA Discover and use this little menu to look up all of these things. So it's a very useful tool. It helps people to get value from the results, and basically it helps to interpret that information and make it understandable. And obviously, when people get more value from the results, then they're more likely to do a test, or they're more likely to do a second test on maybe another DNA kit. So the haplotree is growing very fast at the moment. And at the moment, there is over 85,000 branches on the haplotree, and that's the haplotree that has all of those haplogroups contained within it. And then all of the different variants that are making up those branches, there's 725,000 of them. But those numbers don't really matter much on their own. What matters, I think, is the rate of growth. And that tree is growing by over 1% per month. So that shows that across the FTDNA database, across the whole platform, there is a number of people who are doing tests that are continually helping us to grow that tree and allow us to compare better with all the people who match us. So the branches are growing by, I think, in the last month in October, that's the last month for which results are available. The branches grew just in that 1 month by 1.73%, and the variance rose by 1.47%. So those are pretty high figures. So if we can accomplish that every month, well, then you're maybe talking about a 12 or 14% rise year on year on the size of the tree in terms of branches and variants. So that's giving the context for how many people are doing Big Y outside of our project. And then I decided to do a little examination of what they were achieving within our project as well. So what I did was I looked at the last 10 people that got results at Big Y level within our project. And I just decided to compile some simple statistics based on these 10 individual people. So I looked at how many matches they had at Y37 level, at Y111 level, and Big Y level. And this is because a lot of people are still slightly hesitant about doing Big Y. It's not maybe just the expense. It may be they think, what extra value am I going to get out of this? Am I going to get any matches whatsoever? And I don't think people realize how many people are now doing Big Y and the fact that people are getting so many matches at those levels. And that's why I thought these figures might be interesting for you to see. Now, there is some people that are getting a bad experience. And number 2 here is one of those. This person got 2 matches at Y37, none at 111, and none at Big Y. Now, that was a very rare haplogroup, but obviously you don't know what your haplogroup is going to be before you do the test, and therefore, yes, you can get a bad result. But look at all these other results around it. This person got 53 matches at Y37. They only got 17 at Y111, but they got 186 matches at Big Y. And when you look at the totals for all 10 people, you'll see that the number of Big Y matches received across all 10 matches is considerably higher than the number of matches that people have at 111 level. Now, that's very interesting because a lot of people do think that Big Y will be a subset of the numbers of matches that they have at 111. And that is clearly not the case. And what I also did was I had a little quick look at the haplogroups and what date the common ancestor was. So that's the most recent common ancestor for all of these people. And there is only one of them is sort of BC. All of the others were giving a date which was 80, and most of them were in the last 1,000 years. There is 2 that I couldn't get a precise date for because they are very recent results. And what happened there was when those people got their results, it created a new haplogroup. And the new haplogroup was not yet on FTDNA Discover. So therefore, I wasn't able to get a specific date for that new haplogroup. But what I could do was look at the haplogroup that they had grown out of. And that's the dates I have put there. So that is showing that 9 out of 10 of those tests have got a haplogroup which is in the last 2,000 years, and most of them are actually from 1000 AD to the present day. So most of them are actually in the last 1,000 years. Now, the other interesting thing is that obviously people want to identify or to match against a particular surname. And over the years, this has been something which we have increasingly improved on. Obviously, as the database is getting bigger, both within projects and just generally across FTDNA, it means that we're looking to get more surname matches, and we're looking to find surnames and maybe on examples that we couldn't before. So what I looked here was to see if people were getting surname matches at any of those levels of testing. Even this one here that didn't have any Big Y matches, they still got 2 matches at 37, and those matches confirmed the surname of the tester. So even that did provide some type of surname verification or identification. And this means that someone who maybe doesn't know what their surname is a number of generations back is able to do these tests and find that out. So that's an increasingly powerful tool for us. And what we found was that in 7 out of 10 of these examples, we were able to confirm a surname. Now, obviously, this is a very small example. This is just 10 kits. So I decided to look at it again. I thought, well, let's just do this exact same thing again with the previous 10 just before that. So I did another set of figures, and here's what we got. Pretty consistent results. Again, big Y matches were far higher than 111. And in this instance, the big Y was also higher than the Y37 results. There wasn't anybody this time who didn't have matches at big Y, but there was 2 people that only had 1 big Y match. But again, they weren't getting a high number of matches across the board at the lower levels either. But look at this person here. They still got a recent haplogroup, 1700 AD, and they got that even though they only had 1 big Y match. And again, 7 out of 10 people were able to identify a surname from their Y testing. And this time, all 10 people got a date which was AD, and only one of them here is before 1000 AD. Now, these timescales and the dating of these haplogroups are creeping more towards the present day, and they're coming closer because of the database getting bigger, and obviously there's more comparison points then. So big Y is only getting better, and those haplogroup datings are going to get better, they're going to improve, and they're going to become more recent as the database gets bigger. So I hope that has given you some information on big Y that maybe you didn't understand from that perspective before. So then I looked at mitochondrial matches, and something I get asked all the time is, am I going to get any useful mitochondrial matches? Now, we know that in years gone by, mitochondrial matching hasn't been great for adding people to your family tree. If that's your objective, it probably doesn't work for you very well. It doesn't help us to find matches within the last 8-10 generations that we can maybe work with in Ireland. But what it does do is give you information on that line. It gives you connections, and using the matches maps can be a very good way of finding people that have ancestors in the same location as your mitochondrial ancestors lived in. But the Million Mito Project is going to revolutionize things next year. There is going to be 8 times as many haplogroups, so that's going to give you splits a lot more recent to the present day. And again, there's going to be dates on all of those haplogroups, and you're going to have the full range of discover tools that you can use for Y DNA at the moment. You're going to be able to use them for mitochondrial DNA as well, and they're going to be available free. So again, I looked at the last 20 people in our project that had got mitochondrial results. I looked at the number of matches that they have, and you can see everybody got matches. One person only got 2, one person only got 7, but a lot of people were getting in excess of 200 matches here. And you can see somebody even got 514 matches. But that was the results from the last 20 tests. But at the moment, because mitochondrial DNA has not yet been rolled out into the Million Mito Project, we're still dealing with the old way of working with things. So what I looked at was the genetic distance of 0, because if you're working with your mitochondrial matches at the moment, that is your most useful matches. So basically, this is a way at the moment of identifying if we're going to get useful mitochondrial matches. And you'll find that not everyone did get them. But we find that 9 out of 20 people got over 100 matches, and that 14 out of 20 people got matches which were a genetic distance of 0. So that is perfect matches at mitochondrial level, and it means that they are the ones that you have the best chance of working with. So again, somebody had as many as 28 genetic distance of 0 matches. So again, that's a higher figure than what I expected to find when I compiled these figures. So obviously mitochondrial testing is obviously having an impact, and we're getting better results because more people are testing. Now, we also do local DNA projects, and we have a number of these going at the moment, and one of them is Island McGee. So, Anne, if you would like to speak now just about what we found on the Island McGee project over the last year.
Right, on the Island McGee project, as indicated here, we've got now 214 members. So these are people with ancestry on at least one of their lines from Island McGee. And we've been funding quite a lot of the testing. So we're really going out there into the community and trying to get people who wouldn't normally test their DNA to test and to bring that DNA into the project. And part of the fundraising of our training courses and our DNA summer school, that's what every penny that we raise really goes into funding DNA testing. And you'd see there in the Island McGee project, we have funded 119 of the tests. So that's about half of the tests we have funded, and we manage them on behalf of the people that have tested. Often these are people that maybe wouldn't even have the capabilities of analyzing results, so we kind of just keep them informed or at a high level of their results. But we manage the tests on their behalf, and we get them it's all above board. We get them to sign consent forms, make them aware of exactly what they're doing and what happens to their information. And we've got so far at least 1,200 confirmed matches. As you can understand, we don't tot them up every day, but it's the last time that we added them up, it was about 1,200 confirmed matches, and this is actually only across the 119 funded tests. There'll be many more, probably double that if you include the ones that we don't fund. All of the output that we produce on our local projects, we publish on Wikitree. So we've got, so far for Island McGee, we've got 4,800 profiles on Wikitree of people that were either born and died in Island McGee. So if you can think that peninsula, there's the map, you can see the size of it. It's about 8 miles long and about 1.5 miles wide. So that's the kind of dimensions. If you're trying to visualize it and are not familiar with it. And it's got a population at the minute of around about 2,000 people. So if you can think going back in time, therefore we've been able to get information on 4,800, and we think that we think we're going to be able to get maybe kind of 6,000 to 7,000 profiles in total. And all of that information is publicly accessible, and you can see the trees, you can see all the sources of the information. That is all available on Wikitree. One of the things that we're doing, for those that are researching in Ireland, they'll know the whole issue over the lost census records. So what we're trying to do in Island McGee is we're trying to reconstruct the census records from 1821 to 1891. And, we're using that obviously through all the other sources, particularly church records, wills, etc. We're using that to reconstruct those census records. What we have is, although the census records were destroyed, the detailed census records, people don't realize that the actual statistics are available. And so we do know the total populations for each of the years. And we know for most of the censuses, we know that broken down into actual townlands. So we can use that as a means of saying how far we're getting along in terms of our census databases. And we can get it split by male and female. And also then recently I have discovered a data set for the 1861 census, where it is actually as well split by age in 5-year cohorts. So we're using all of that together to be able to validate the data that we are producing. And you can see there that so far, if we look at the range from 1821 right up to 1891, in 1821, we've managed to identify 40% of people, and that will definitely go up. And we're 49% in 1831, 41 we're at 59%, 51 we're at 69%, then 84% for 61, and 71, 94%, and then in 1881 and 1891, we are at 100% now. When I talk about 100%, I suppose what I'm saying is that is on our first pass, if you want to call it that, of the data. And what we'll see is that we will be carrying out a review, because I suppose we're saying that we would probably never be able to achieve exactly 100%. But at the minute, we've been able to identify enough names that are equivalent to the statistics in the census. When we review, we've been categorizing the information. We kind of are color charting it. So we've got yellow, where we're not 100% sure of the accuracy of the information. So we'll be able to review that and maybe take some out. But also, in a way, our census records are actually more accurate than what the real census records would be. Because one of the things about Island Magee is that it is a seafaring population. A lot, probably nearly every family in the island, as they call it, has at least one member is at sea, and therefore when they do take the census records, these people are missing because they're obviously away at sea. And but obviously the records that we're producing are we obviously have that information, and so that is why we're actually going to have figures of higher than 100%. And we see that reflected in, if we look at the 1901 and 1911 census records, which are available, you can see that there is a significant difference between males and females. So in a normal population, there are more females than males. So you would get, it's usually around about 103% to 100% of females to males. And in Island Magee, we're getting between 127%, 130% of females. So you're getting a lot more females than males. And so that's why, in a way, our census records are actually going to be more accurate than the real census records would be. So I think that's a summary of the Island Magee project.
All right, Anne, thank you very much indeed for that. I think that was very useful. And again, that figure of completeness would then affect all of the census records going well back, I'm assuming, because that would be for all of the census records over the years. There would have been a number of seafaring people. So as the other numbers edge up, it'll be interesting to see if we can get them up above 100% as well. But that's great. Thank you for providing that information for us. So just to conclude today's presentation, just want to look forward a wee bit and draw a few conclusions out of the figures that we've looked at today. And what we can really assert very strongly is that the 9 counties of Ulster, which is the north of Ireland, they are well represented across all of the 3 major test types of DNA. This is going to benefit local testers. It's going to help people with north of Ireland ancestry, but it's also going to help people who have ancestry from here who live elsewhere. And that's critical because we really need to test here in order to help people around the world to find where their ancestors came from. And that's what we're going to be able to achieve. We're going to get more recent haplogroups as the haplogroup testing continues and as more people do Y and mitochondrial tests. We're going to get larger match lists as people do all types of tests, including Family Finder. And one of the statistics I pulled out there was that 7 out of 10 people can identify a surname based on Y testing. Now, that was based on an examination at big Y level, but it is also apparent at the lower levels as well. And again, currently 7 out of 10 people are getting those best mitochondrial matches. But again, I would hope that that would improve next year as more people test because of the new changes in mitochondrial DNA. And our local projects are giving that density of testing, because by funding a lot of projects and a lot of people to test in a particular area, we're bringing out more DNA from those areas, allowing more relationships and connections to be proved. And that's given us more density in our testing and helping people who are related to those particular families. But as I said, as we look forward, we are confident now that more testing is going to lead us to even better results. I think the North of Ireland project is in a very good place. I think we've achieved an awful lot over the next 10 years, and it is quite exciting to think where we're going to be in another 10 years' time. So thank you for listening today, and I hope that has been a useful analysis of where we are currently. All right, thank you.